to the last pre-lunch session of the Goa Arts and Literature Festival 2016. Really excited to welcome you to this particular session. As you know, the festival continually pushes the bounds of what is considered decent and respectable and normal when it comes to literature gatherings, and I'm really pleased and grateful that our three major poets, as well as Mustansir Dalvi, is going to be hosting this, agreed to a kind of a semi-lunatic idea, which I think is going to work out very well. This Antakshari, as you know, it's possibly the wrong word for this particular session. Antakshari is a great tradition in India of trading off on songs when you end on a particular syllable and the next person starts on the next syllable. We are not exactly going to do this, and they're really indulging me and the idea, but today we have three of really the greatest poets writing of our times, and it's an extraordinary privilege to have them. I'll quickly invite them on stage, please. Satchidanandan, who is a rare poet who writes both in English and Malayalam, one of the very best in the world. Landeg, you heard yesterday. Landeg is a remarkable translator of Kamoish and also one of the very best poets writing in the English language today. And Professor Edwin Thumboo, our dear friend Professor Edwin Thumboo from Singapore, one of the great men of literature of our time. And hosting is again our dear friend Mustansir Dalvi, a remarkable translator, professor of architecture, and a poet of great repute. Welcome to Poetry Antakshari. Mustansir, I'm going to hand the microphone to you. Good luck.
Thank you, Vivek. And I do not think in all the 3.5 days of this festival you will find a lineup like the gentleman here. And so it is an extreme privilege to be sitting here on the dais with them, and my instinct is to fade away as quickly as possible. But before I do that, I have to add this provocation which comes from Vivek, and that provocation came in the form of the title which says Poetry Antakshari. And as soon as I came to know that, the first thing I did was send an email back to the management saying, is there somebody I can talk with, about this? But Vivek said you interpret it in any way you like. But then we've been talking about this since yesterday and going on looking at different options. And we're keeping it simple. Essentially, the spirit of the Antakshari will be honored in the simple manner in which we are going to conduct this, and that is that each poet will read a poem at a time. And then the next poet will read, and the next poet will read. And I would hope that they would respond to each other, resonate with each other, and maybe even provoke each other in their choices. It is completely open-ended. Each of these poets has such a large body of work to choose from that I'm sure it will be difficult for them. But with your support and a little encouragement, I'm sure it will be an excellent session. And what we have to work out typically, and maybe you can lay bets on it, is who gets the last poem. So, apropos of nothing, we shall just start. And may I ask Mr. White to begin, and then Satchida and Mr. Thumboo, and then cyclically around. And could I request you to read the poem that you read yesterday, which is the one on reading Herodotus. And maybe that is the way to begin this session. If you were there yesterday, you would know what a brilliant poem it was. And I would just love to hear it again. So here goes.
I live in a small village in Portugal. I've been there for the last 16 years. And I'm retired. And one of the great pleasures of being retired is that you can read. You've got time to read. You can pick up a book of 600 or 700 pages and know that you're going to be able to start it and finish it within a week or so. And this is a pleasure I haven't had for many, many years. Anyway, one of the books that I picked up last year was Herodotus, the Greek historian. I wasn't reading him in Greek, don't get excited. I was reading him in English translation, a very fine translation by Tim Holland. And this is a poem just about the experience. It's called Father of Lies, because that's the name that was conferred on him ages ago. And it begins with a quotation from the book by way of epigraph. He says, quote, "The heights of Parnassus can readily accommodate a large crowd of people." So, Father of Lies. Glorious at 75 on a summer's evening on my veranda to be reading Herodotus. Why didn't I do this 60 years back? To have formed my mind after his fashion, endlessly inquiring, closed to no novelty, embracing digression as a narrative norm as fresh facts crowded his pen, meticulously distinguishing what he saw with his own eyes from what was credibly witnessed, what entertainingly rumoured, and what evident nonsense but too hilarious to leave out. He was wrong, of course, to claim Ethiopians eject black sperm. Aristotle corrected this. But I applaud his Persians, who debate laws twice, once when sober and again drunk, adopting whatever's doubly approved. Better that than a House of Lords. His belief that events are predetermined by oracles speaking in ambiguous verse seems as sound a historical method as any, whether your sages are Gibbon or Althusser. His approach to poetry is matter of fact, witness those crowds haunting Parnassus. And his ruling myth that free men of Athens will always defeat the slaves of autocracy is one I buy into, though his tribes at war seem simultaneously just down the road and all too menacingly up to date.
Many people think I am a bilingual poet, which I am not. In fact, I write poetry only in my mother tongue, Malayalam. But since I translate my own poems into English, well, I don't mind being called bilingual. Whatever poems I'm going to read are translations of my own work, originally done in Malayalam. And this is a poem about the mad people. In fact, my family had a lot of insane people, literally insane people, including my grandmother, at least three members of my family. And since I have lived with them for long, I often feel that I understand the insane people much better than the so-called sane people. And so this poem deals with the way I understand madness, the mad. The mad have no caste nor religion. They transcend gender, live outside ideologies. We do not deserve their innocence. Their language is not of dreams but of another reality. Their love is moonlight. It overflows on the full moon day. Looking up, they see gods we have never heard of. They are shaking their wings when we fancy they are shrugging their shoulders. They hold, even flies have souls, and a green god of grasshoppers leaps up on thin legs. At times they see trees bleed, hear lions roar from the streets. At times they watch heaven gleaming in a kitten's eyes, just as we do. But they alone can hear ants sing in a chorus. While patting the air, they are taming a cyclone over the Mediterranean. With their heavy tread, they stop a volcano from erupting. They have another measure of time. Our century is their second. 21 seconds and they reach Christ. 6 more, they are with the Buddha. In a single day, they reach the Big Bang at the beginning. They go on walking restless, for their earth is boiling still. The mad are not mad like us.
I'm going to read two short poems, both with historical significances, I hope. We are an artificial nation in the sense that Singapore was created by the British in this sense. They set it up and then attracted migrants, immigrants from East Asia as well as South Asia. So all of us who are there, even if you are the third or fourth generation, have two histories. One is the history of your forebears outside Singapore, and then the transitional history of their coming, and finally the history we're trying to make in Singapore, not as separate communities, but as a singularity. We are a hyphenated people. We start off as Chinese, Indian, Malay, Eurasian, Singaporeans. We hope that the hyphen will shift, that in years to come, it will be Singaporean, Chinese, Indians, and Malays, with the Singaporean coming first. And hopefully, if you're still around, in 200 years' time, you'll just be plain Singaporeans. So the first poem is Temasek. Temasek, Singapore has a long history, but a lot of the history was oral. We didn't have the historical traditions of the Greeks, for instance, or Chinese, where you've got terrific historians, it's Ma Kuang, Ma Chien, and so on. We had annals, the Malays, the only one with a record. You had hikayats and you had sejarahs. Hikayats are narratives, sejarahs are histories. So Temasek has a long history, as I said, and here I see it as a symbol. Deprived of you, history and sense turn quicksilver. In my grieving sigh, grammars of living break their tense. Diminished tact, impatience, pride, other contraries of soft power that override or humble fact debate. The sea's recession or the faded flower. I wonder if again old-fashioned fate jealously ruminates in secret, rides us creatures who celebrate or rule. I am bare, unknowing. The world derides my acts, my silences deprived of. The other poem is based on a very big episode in Chinese history, and I apologize for coming up only with a short poem. One of the most famous emperors of the Tang emperors was a person called Ming Huang, which means the golden emperor, etc. Now, Ming Huang started off his reign well. He did all the marvelous things, and then he met a woman. And her name was Yang Kui Fei. We visited, the remains, the buildings, etc. And the tourist guide was very excited. This is where Yang Kui Fei used to bathe, and this is where Ming Huang used to watch her. So I asked her, what's this? What should this mean to us? Anyway, because he was infatuated with her, he neglected his imperial duties, and one of his generals, An Lushan, who incidentally was a Sogdian, not Chinese, revolted, and he had to flee the capital, and she, of course, went with him. And the soldiers said, you must kill her, otherwise we will not support you. And she was strangled. And then the dynasty was restored, but never to its former power. It no longer had any self-confidence after that. So I call it bamboos. Why? We went to the grove where I thought the Tang poets used to meet. And they couldn't tell me whether they actually did and whether this was the grove. But it's nice to imagine poets, sort of sipping wine under the rustling bamboos. So it's called bamboos. And incidentally, the Chinese have very poor beards, okay? Small little wisps there, and they spend a lot of time exaggerating it with gestures, huh? Okay. I can say that because I'm half Indian and half Chinese, huh? So I'm not being racist. Incidentally, I have to shave. I've got one. I've got a beard. Bamboos. Facing northern winds, they sing like clustered lyrics in the sun. Around them, an interlacing ring of peach whose buds have just begun. And down that path, across a saddened stream, he teased a thinning beard, stroked his rhymes to cap metaphors fusing truth and dream, hoping to mend his bitter, broken times. Words gentler than petals float and fall from branching sky into insouciant pool. Words pushed beyond sadness by the recall and call of deep-chested water drums. Oh, happy fool, not hearing, you set down robe and crown, preferring a beauty's flank and tears, the grip of her lips, the tension of her frown, as barbarians pull the kingdom by its ears. Facing northern winds, the poem sighs with the bamboos. The court leaves town as fate inscribes a darkening sky into which the poet dips his thinning brush as more petals fall into the final hush.
Well, picking up the theme of migration and history and bamboo, that's enough linkages, I think. This is a family poem. As I told you, I live in a village in Portugal. We moved there when my younger son finally finished secondary school and left us free to move from the town we were living in. When your sons leave home, it's a very poignant moment. They have to go, of course. If they've been brought up properly, they will want to go. But nevertheless, for the parents, it's a moment of great poignancy. The poem is about my younger son's 19th birthday, the barbecue we held for him, just before he set off to go to university in England. His elder brother had been spending the summer with him and was about to leave in the same few days. And we had this barbecue on a piece of land that we had bought where we were planning to build a house, but nothing had yet been built. I think that's all you need to know. I think it's coherent from then on. It's called The Platform. John's 19th birthday barbecue, the week before they both depart. The platform by the old plum tree that once held me to the ground, yet to be tiled. But no matter. There's the sound of running water and a concrete base for tables and chairs. The charcoal's already tinkling, and for the first time, we can see the spot Elise chose gets the last of the sunset. Haven't you got a light down here, says Francisco, protesting the obvious. By the time the spare ribs are done, it's starlight, and a pepper chicken served blindfold, but delicious. There's a good wine and cold beer. We huddle in the slight chill, and Alex indulges to the full his drinking half and opening another as we toast John and celebrate his brother. The looming wall of invisible canners a jagged tear at the sky's edge. To the west, pines are silhouetted, and revolving above us in this breeze from the furrowed Atlantic, this out-of-town blackness, are Orion and the Great Bear, the Plough and distant Pleiades, conspiring with the hour hand that returns our sons to England. I confide to Elise. We create the stage on which they play out their departures, nothing more. But for her, land, ancestors, and inheritance are not oases on a desert journey, but the beginning and purposed end. Each shared meal, every heeled-in route is like the northern star, a lantern, a fixity, a magnet, and a legend. I remember the Exodus and the Psalms, the antipodes of my childhood, the straight and narrow pilgrimage, the annual round of milk and honey. Like it or not, they are on their way, and their visits will be seasonal, Christmas and family summer, as the other loyalties we pray will be theirs exert their tidal pull, delivering other ceremonies of survival.
Speaking of history, I have a couple of short poems based on something that happened in Turkey during the recent resistance there. Perhaps you might have come to know that in 2013, it was on the 17th June. There were two places where usually they held public meetings. They still hold public meetings, but people were not allowed to assemble in those places. But one day a dancer, a choreographer actually came and stood in one of those places. It's called Gezi Park, and knowing through the social media that somebody is standing there for hours, a lot of people came and joined him, and they stood together for the whole day, and that became a major demonstration, a standing demonstration. They did not have a slogan, they didn't say anything, but that became a major expression of protest. And the other incident happened in another place, Taksin Square, a public square, where again there was no permission for assembly, where a couple came and stood there kissing, and again, like what happened to the standing man, a lot of couples came, followers and couples came forward, and they stood there kissing for a whole day, and that became again the second major protest. So these poems are based on these episodes, but I'm also trying to define poetry through what was done there. This is a very simple poem. There is very little poetry, in fact. The Standing Man. A man still silent stands in the a man still silent stands in the park where demonstrations are forbidden. He is going nowhere. Nowhere is he coming from. The world passes before him and time behind him. In between, with no flags or slogans, he stands still, silent. The world moves with the sun, and he multiplies, becomes 100, becomes 1,000, hands in pockets. They just stand still, silent. This is a nation in war, a nation that stands up against injustice, a glimpse of the future seen in a lightning flash. A man stands in the park, still silent. The sun goes round him. Poetry is a man standing alone in a forbidden space. I'm sorry, it's a pair I have to wait the second too, I'm sorry. The kiss. Many of you must have read Octavio Paz's Sunstone, where he says, when two people kiss, the world changes. Well, there's a reference to that here, the kiss. You didn't believe when the poet said, the world changes when two people kiss. See them, a man, a woman, they kiss. Not a man and a woman, but many men, many women. In the same square where the enforcers of law and of morals used to frown together if ever they walked hand in hand. A man, a woman, many men, many women, in the square, once a prison to every kiss. They are breaking the law, the present law of death. They are making the law, the future's law of life. Poetry is a private kiss, provocatively exchanged in a public space. These two poems inspired two major struggles in Kerala. There was a standing struggle by the Adivasi, the tribal people, and there was a kissing struggle against moral policing in Kerala.
Singaporeans are always, especially the older generation, those who grew up and moved by nationalism, the sense of a multiracial Singapore as against in Malaya, a Malaya. So you're looking for opportunities to see life move across from one culture to another. And for me, the classic example, which I like to remind my Chinese friends of, is the journey of Hanuman to China, where he's become a major figure, an absolutely major figure, Wukong. And his mythic life in China is different from his mythic life here. He becomes a curious number two, whose behavior is like that of number one. He could only be contained by the powers of heaven, chiefly Kuan Yin. So, for me, the occasion to see this kind of coalescing, as it were, is in antique shop, where you see the symbols, you see the artifacts, and so on. And a very dear friend of mine, his father ran one of these establishments, and he had a lot of things. So I must explain something. Kuan Yin, you know, the significance of lotus, you know, especially in India, you don't need to explain. In fact, I have to learn about the rose from you. And then the Mogadishu, Cheng He's journey, because Cheng He's journey was important. Not many people realize that he had his own Rosetta Stone. It was erected in Sri Lanka, in Ceylon. It's in 3 languages. 3 languages. The Chinese praised Buddha, the Arabic praised Allah, and the Tamil praised a local deity in Sri Lanka. And then you have ivory boats, his great sailing ships, his 6 voyages, the last of which was the 1430 to 33, on which he died. He was buried at sea, like Osama Laden. The other reference here is Hanuman and Ali of the Iron Staff, one of the 8 immortals. Now Ali is very special for some of us because he used to go on astral travels. So his body was there inert, dead, no pulse. It was taken away. So when he came back, he didn't have a body. So what happened? He found the body of a beggar, a dead person, and he entered. So if you look at him now, he's ugly, etc., he limps. But think of the spirit that moved him, that caused this transformation, as it were. So for me, he's the most important of the 8 mortals. And I have a reference to Kunming. Kunming was the strategist for Levi in the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. And what is remarkable about him is that he knew that his patron would not win. He knew they would lose, but he says, I'll give it a bloody good try. And he would have succeeded in mythological terms because he was carrying out rituals to lengthen his life, not to live longer, but to live longer to help his emperor. And then, as usual, the office boy walks in and is interrupted. I think many of us have had this experience, right? And especially you're writing a poem or something, you know, somebody walks in, you know, and then you have this problem. So I call this poem Conversation with My Friend Kwan Min and Lun Kwang of Outram Park. Now, if you're a Singaporean, Outram Park is full of history. It starts off with Sikh sepoys, and then they built a prison, and then in 1914, when the Brits in their wisdom sent Muslims who came from Afghanistan, the Pathans, to go and fight their Muslim brothers in Turkey, and they revolted. And they were put against a wall, and they were shot. And of course, the usual story is they couldn't die because they had amulets and so on, you know, that rich thing. And the Brits never repaired or never covered the bullet marks. Symbolic reminder. So all these references resonate with Singaporeans, provided they know their early history. Among sensitive vases, silk birds lamenting southern fading flowers, and those delicate golden statues caught in some potent gesture, you are captured by serenity, Kuan Yin upon the lotus. Conversation fades, time splits itself. There are centuries here in these images. Many generations left these contemplations, embodiments of hope, despair. In art, the art of living, mounting better worlds, man emerging from the dark, made dreams, stave nightmares into lovely moving monuments, each a voice stealing upon you, conversing softly out of its secret heart. This jade pomegranate is succulent. That ivory boat will always sail to Mogadishu, taking Cheng He by our city. In that corner, intimidating himself, a cutish lion glares. Halfway up the wall, in porcelain, a rare Hanuman. He ravished the gardens of heaven, cowed the gods one weekend, was tamed and synonized, absorbed, given a role, then adventured home to India in search of texts. He scratches still in Kung Fu fashion. On a plinth, Lee of the Iron Staff, whose gentle heart belies the terror of his face, remains a comfort, but better lesson than to suffer because you helped another. Empires wax and wane, states cleave asunder, coalesce in this covered panel. Kunming deceives his enemy by playing his favorite tune while perched upon the city gate. He smiles, who faithfully served. Of course, he knew what's lost. He who ruled the winds, understood the stars, the very hand of fate, kept true unto the last. As you move into presences of the past, little things emerge. Teapots, a cracked perky cup, incense burners, heavy with prayer, brush stands, wine jugs, all looking contented in a Singapore afternoon.
From the last two readings, we've moved in the direction of the association of poetry with power. Poetry with power. Not politics, power. And this leads me to read this following poem. I told you I live now in a small village in Portugal. And shortly after we moved there, I found myself having to build a wall. And this made me very uncomfortable because I don't like walls. Walls are there to keep people out, to fence yourself in. And for some reason, being preoccupied with this, my thoughts turned to a famous meeting between the German poet Paul Celan and the philosopher Martin Heidegger. Heidegger, of course, Heidegger was the supreme philosopher of being located, being rooted. He lived in the Black Forest in a house that was very simple. Paul Celan was the German poet of Jewish descent who admired Heidegger, but at the same time had problems with his Nazi associations. And when Celan went to meet Heidegger in the Black Forest hut where he was living, he had a question for him. Where do Jews and Gypsies fit in with your philosophy? And apparently Heidegger didn't answer the question. In the accounts of the meeting, he avoided the subject. And instead they went for a walk in the forest, and Heidegger was very surprised to discover how much Celan knew about the flora and fauna of the Black Forest. And they concentrated particularly on orchids, and orchids became the subject of the poem which Celan wrote about the occasion, which I think is highly critical of Heidegger, but it was sent to Heidegger and he took it as a tribute, so philosophers are not always very intelligent. Anyway, that's a random account of what is more crisply expressed in the poem. It's called When Paul Celan Met Heidegger. When Paul Celan met Heidegger in that Black Forest hut where the philosopher and nature met in the manner of soiled centuries, his question hung in the damp air. What of Jews and the Gypsies? Blue-eyed Hitler, vegicologist, anti-smoker and folklorist, concentrated all wanderers and earthed them in his fires. Such was the poet's right to ask. The philosopher was silenced. And it echoes wherever a plot patrols to it. What of refugees, aliens, asylum seekers, Palestinians? Celan found beautiful sport in the orchid. I write in praise of the canine hybrid that claims his space by hoisting a leg, no matter who planted the lamppost.
Now that Edwin has brought in China and my friend has brought in philosophy, I will read a poem which in some sense combines these. I've been to China thrice, and every time, every visit has given me a few poems, and this is one of them. I I visited as part of the tour a Tao temple close to Beijing, and the poem is titled "How to Go to the Tao Temple." Don't lock the door. Go lightly, like the leaf in the breeze along the dawn's valley. If you are too fair, cover yourself with ash. If too clever, go half asleep. That which is fast will tire fast. Be slow, slow as stillness. Be formless like water. Lie low, don't even try to go up. Hello? Lie low, don't even try to go up. Don't go around the deity. Nothingness has no directions, no front nor back. Don't call it by name, its name has no name. No offerings, empty pots are easier to carry than full ones. No prayers too, desires have no place here. Speak silently if speak you must, like the rock speaking to the trees and leaves to flowers. Silence is the sweetest of voices, and nothingness has the fairest of colors. Let none see you coming and none going. Cross the threshold shrunken like one crossing a river in winter. You have only one moment here, like the melting snow. No pride, you are not even formed. No anger, not even dust is at your command. No sorrow, it doesn't alter anything. Renounce greatness, there is no other way to be great. Don't ever use your hands. They are contemplating not love but violence. Let the fish lie in its water and the fruit on its bough. The soft one shall survive the hard, like the tongue that survives death. Only the one who does nothing can do everything. Go. The unmade idol awaits you. Thank you.
We talk of immigrants, migration. We usually talk of people. I want to talk about language. And the one language that's really migrated is English. It's remained, become strong, etc. And we can't do without it. There are many Englishes now. We have paid for the language, not only in silver and gold, but in sweat and blood, etc. And we can claim it to be our own. So that we have world Englishes, despite the fact that our bloody computers, whenever you put Englishes, it shows us a mistake. You have New Zealand English, despite a small population, there's a dictionary. You have American English, more recent one than Webster's. You have South African English, etc., etc. And you have, as I mentioned the other day, in St. Xavier's College, you have Hobson and Jobson. The Indians should be expert. You folks here, there was so much. You can lend it to others, but make sure you keep it and work on it yourself. So I was invited to this festival in Durban. It's an interesting festival. It's got slams, it's got a whole lot. And it was a personal pleasure for me because they have one of the few remaining 18-inch guns that the British used to defend Singapore, pointing the wrong way. All right? And it was quite exciting. I asked to see the guns. Everybody knew they existed, but they didn't know where. I said, it was not a ready-made. There's another one like that. And talk about guns and you go silent. In Cook Island. So a few references here. Huh? Now we had a poet who just made odd sounds that had meaning. His name was Peter Robnik. was good, I mean, whenever we felt tired of poetry, we got him on. Hey, Peter, get going. And he needed about two beers. Okay, I'll be fast. Thank you. Durban poetry. Yep. A few other explanations. Chetsuwaya was the last independent Zulu king. All right. And what else? I need to explain. He conducted a raid and captured a whole bunch of paddy cattle, and they had a little slogan. It's Usutu. He and his impis made that into a battle cry. And the horns, the Zulu impis, you have the horns, the bull's horns. They surrounded you by going around, and in the center where the boss of the horns are, you had your indunas. The indunas would give the instructions. We always think that with oral tradition, you can't convey things with bloody nonsense. They're damn good. Think of the speaking drums, right? I mean, how subtle they can be. What else that needs explanation here? I think that's about it. Yes. Yeah, okay. Now, this festival brings together people from various parts of the world. And you're supposed to write a poem when you're there. Now, I don't believe in instant poetry, all right? I said I'll give you 2 lines, I'll give you the rest when I get back, which I did. You asked for a poem amidst continental omen, prophecy, crisp tribal theologies, and loggerhead, prospering wars, drought, famine, crude corruption. Young nostrils plagued by flies, while distended bellies mark our days. Unhinged war, unhinged our peace. Justice is maimed, at times cleverly imprisoned between definitions. In times where truth is forced, and force a crooked heaven, we try steady, uncoiling dialogue, partially Englishes. Yours and mine, these Englishes, as we draw and validate all we think, write and speak, cajole our earth and air, remaking every phoneme to ours. Gathering in Durban, race, strife, discourse, commanding tongues, assert history. Burnish such provinces of life, renewing promises. Peter Rovnick's May winter conclave started slowly. Herd moved and tense, decolonized, renew conjunctions. Mandated by ancestral ways, they propel the secrets of our utterance. So stretch each word to drink the same feeding pigment. Remove their imperial themes. Subdue the echoes, ignore post-colonial patronage, injudicious, hurtful judgments of the past, then leap beyond any questioning. Name wind, trees, wounds fractured by blood that gallops through the heart of words. And the word I came with is now multiplied because I heard you and you and you sing, move, make, far more total. Shake pain or joy, despair or hope. You whispered, shouted, changed gears, clearing throats for new vowels. The drift of Drakensberg among clouds as the buffalo horns gradually close. And that mist in the valley of the kings, Usuthu, the grumbling gravel of the roads, smooth rainbows, varying utterances from one culture to the next, as the measured phrase opens into orality, gesture, breaking into slang and Juke's language, masterly neighbors, words will never be the same again. There are more doors to open, to disclose, dislodge, adjust, through which to make our dreams, to float and fly. Here truly, the poet's private sunshine gets revealed. Home of his words, the laughter of his tribe, choo-choo kiki, murmuring, walking through the sunshine shadows, sharing bone and marrow while cleaving to our flanks. I have new sounds to wake up dreams.
Have we time? Yes. We've been 5, it says 55.
We have plenty of time.
5.
We have time.
Okay, but time is getting short, so I'll read something very brief. I haven't done this business before about reading individual poems that are intended to take up the theme of the one just read, but the range, historical range of Edwin's poems is so great that it's actually quite easy to pick up something enormous range that he's covered. And he's been talking about oral poetry, the oral tradition, and the power of orality, as one of the themes addressed in the last poem he's read. And this is what I'm addressing here. I have worked for a long time with African oral poetry. I spent about 12, 15 years collecting material and recording it and publishing it and interpreting it. And this is a poem about what happens to oral poets over time. It's called Recall Your Purpose. Pity the ballad singer, whether flattering kings, or praising the warrior, or consoling the wench big-bellied but unwed, while mocking the friar who levied her maidenhead. Pity the ballad-monger when printing begins. Expelled from the court by lordly sonneteers, his picture's the pavement, as he rhymes of Newgate to loitering servants. Pity the singer of tales when he becomes folklore, ancient turns of phrase promoting ethnic wars. Song, recall your purpose, to burnish the other in ourselves and ridicule all courtiers.
Now that we are speaking of hello. Now that we are speaking of language and poetry, I'll read two very short poems on language and poetry. Not about language, maybe about the absence of language. Stammer. Stammer is no handicap. It is a mode of speech. Stammer is the silence that falls between a word and its meaning, just as lameness is the silence that falls between the word and the deed. Did stammer precede language or succeed it? Is it only a dialect or a language itself? These questions make the linguists stammer. Each time we stammer, we are offering a sacrifice to the god of meanings. When a whole people stammer, stammer becomes their mother tongue, just as it is with us now. God too must have stammered when he created man. That's why every word of man carries different meanings. That's why everything he utters, from his prayers to his commands, stammers like poetry. Very short poem. I have a series of poems of poetry. This is just a few lines. It's called the unwritten poem. I am the poem no one has written yet. I travelled up to the fingertips of many poets, but retreated to the dream like unexpressed love, as I was without a script. I am not afraid of language, as long as it has a future tense. One day, I'll find my words. A wonderstruck child will see a sail unfold and rise slowly on a vacant page under a new star.
Time up?
No, please go. Please go.
Okay, this is a very short one. Huh? Okay, a quick explanation. 47, each one, N1, you know. That's a terrible illness. Okay, and Stanley Ho is the man who brought gambling to Macau. He handed everything to his children and they tried to strip him of all his power. He got mad. He took everything back. Okay, he was great. It should be interesting. His first wife was a Portuguese beauty, and after that, all his wives were his ex-nurses whenever he fell ill. So whenever he fell ill, all the nurses thought they had a chance. That's about it. Okay, quickly. Words for the day. I happen to be in Hong Kong, you see, teaching in one of the small universities, where I was overpaid and underworked. And I told them that, they were very unhappy. Words for the day. Each morning has its words. They awake with lotus blended waters, ritually sprinkled before our doors, a pure heart. Sotto voce, these companions in proper spirit style, neat, clean metaphors of the day to lift my sentences. I choose best colors to enrich this minute, mood and thought to soothe perception's doors. Let what is to be said find a sober tongue, intent on clarity, decorum. Follow Webster's grammar. Let there be no ambiguity, none. Narrow are the ways to heaven is my reminder. What will the world be at 9 or after lunch? You words, compatriots, for this morning, prepare. Be fresh rather than habitual. Don't let me down. I can't become upset. You are my only language. Let the hour hold no semantic terror, no haters. The news will include the bad again, suicide bombs, 47 H1N1, Stanley Ho is hopping mad. Poor man, how the rich suffer. And there are persistent emails. Let them all descend, cascade, whatever is to come. My morning has made me ready. I have words.
Something very short. Years ago, I was doing research on an African village and visiting pretty well every day, arriving by car, meeting these villagers, and very, very conscious all the time, becoming increasingly conscious over the months that I was going there of the huge gap between my privilege and their poverty. It came down to simple things like the fact that I was wearing shoes and they didn't. And this is just a poem reflecting on, a very simple poem reflecting on this problem. It's called Cotton, Rubber, Tobacco, etc. So now you're going to have your coffee, says the interpreter approvingly. And the villagers gather in a noisy circle to study the white man drinking his coffee. They have all grown coffee for the white man and can tell me about every stage of the culture and preparation, except for the drinking, which is hilarious to watch. Who knows, next I might change my underpants, blow up a condom, burn a cigar, or do something else they have worked lives for and never earn.
I too will read a very short poem without any introduction. Self. My mother didn't believe when in 1945 I appeared to her in a dream and told her I would be born to her the following year. I was born in 46. My father recognized me as soon as he saw the mole below my left thumb. But mother believed to the very end that someone else had been born to her, masquerading as me. Father and I pleaded with her, but dreams can't be relied on. She went on waiting for that promised son till she died. Only when she was reborn as my daughter did she admit it had really been me. But by then I had begun to doubt it was someone else's heart that was beating within my body. One day I will retrieve my heart, my language too.
This is called a poetry reader. Thank you. This is called a poetry reader. Bring life and living, untidiness and order, carbuncles and pearl, dark half-closed doors with image, metaphor, lingual calm, a grammar's entity whose first act lifts the id into a super self. Let burnished, blazing power renew dim faces, fire those memories that keep you standing, nerves, power roots, tinkling sap, as discourse smooths its rough moments into damas, filigree syllables. You know afresh why the very beginning there was the word. So move in the flow, the curving tide, the drift and wash. So prime for another verbal icon, where by the waters of the Seine, more poems gather. I read them, they read me.
Thank you so much for that wonderful session. Landeg White, Satchidanandan, Edwin, Thumboo, and thank you so much Mustansir and Dalvi for reading that. That was quite amazing. You will hear more from these three gentlemen in the course of the festival. That was really a highlight, I think, in the 7 years of our festival in many ways.